Please open the embroidery kit. First, take a look at the step-by-step guide picture inside the box. After scanning the QR code, please open the practice kit to learn the commonly used basic embroidery stitches. Then use the materials kit to start the official crafting. If you have any questions during the making process, you can contact us at any time. Open the embroidery kit. First is the QR code card. Then there are material kits for the 4 styles. This is the practice kit. These are the tools. And the embroidery hoop needed for embroidery. The stitch-in color guides of the 4 styles. Open the practice kit. You can see here some commonly used stitches that will also be used later in the making process. You can practice the stitches first before off-seal crafting. This way you will get started faster and make the finished product more beautiful. When learning the basic stitches, you will use this stitch guide for beginners. It has detailed introductions of the stitch names and the number of strands of thread needed. Before making, you can refer to this guide to study. After learning the basic embroidery stitches, you will be able to create a cute little pattern like this. You can cut it out and place it on any small item you like. Now, let's learn how to create the Alocasia embroidery embroidery. Before starting, you can practice the basic stitching techniques using the practice kit. You can first practice using the practice kit before stitching the final piece. Before starting, first take out our embroidery hoop. The embroidery hoop consists of an inner ring and an outer ring. First, separate the inner ring and the outer ring. Rotate the screw at the top. Pull apart, take out the inner ring. Take out our embroidery fabric. Place the embroidery fabric in the center of the inner ring. You can take a rough look first. Slightly adjust its position. Then take out our outer ring. Pull apart. Fit it over the inner ring. Like this. Then, slightly tighten the screw on top. Slightly secure our fabric. Then stretch the fabric surface tight. Be careful not to distort the pattern. If you are not satisfied, you can take it apart and re-stretch it. After the fabric is properly stretched, tighten the screw. The stretched embroidery fabric surface will make a bong 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 sound when tapped. Pressing down will have a noticeable rebound, indicating that our fabric surface is properly stretched. After we have placed the embroidery fabric, usually, one hand is used to support the embroidery hoop. Our fingers gently support the embroidery surface. Holding the needle with the other hand for embroidery operations is more convenient. In the video to provide everyone with a better demonstration, an embroidery hoop stand will be used. These are the two types of needles we commonly use. This needle is slightly longer and has a slightly larger eye. The other needle is slightly thinner and has a smaller eye. We usually use this thicker needle for threading for 2 6 strands of thread. This finer needle is generally used for threading 1 to 3 strands of thread. This is our thread holder. When you need to use the thread, take it off the thread holder. This is what it looks like when folded in half. Then we can take one thread at a time. This hand slightly holds it in place. This way, one thread is taken. Then neatly arrange the others and hang them back on our thread holder. This way, the threads won't get tangled. Like this. Separate the thread. Our embroidery thread consists of 6 single strands. We fold the embroidery thread in half before using it. Like this. Cut it in the middle. Take out one thread. When separating the thread, pull out one strand at a time from the middle. Hold the end of the thread with this hand. Gently pull the strand out with the other hand. Like this, one strand is ready. If we want to take a second strand, do it the same way as before. First, separate one strand. Then hold the end. You can slightly hold it with your hand. Gently pull out the strand. Like this. Be careful not to be greedy. Pulling 2 strands at once can easily cause tangling and make it difficult to pull through. Common threaders are composed of a handle and wire. The method of use is the same. Here, we use this for demonstration. Press the wire of the threader through the position of our needle eye. Then hold our needle and threader to pass the embroidery thread through. This demonstration uses 5 strands of embroidery thread. Shorten the thread end. Pass it through like this. Hold the thread end and pull it forward. Then we hold the thread and needle. Pull the threader close to the needle eye. When holding the needle, be careful to slightly move it upwards, close to the needle eye. You can gently pinch the wire to hold it in place to prevent it from slipping out of the handle with too much force. Then pull the thread in this direction. You can also thread the needle directly. Wrap the thread around our needle eye. Then hold it in place with your hand. Pinch a small area. If it's too large, it won't pass through easily. Press it through like this, then use your hand to pull out the threaded part. How to tie a knot. After threading, we usually need to tie a knot at the end. The first method. Make a loop with the thread. Place the end of the thread over the longer thread. Then pass it through. Like this. Tighten. You can repeat once. Wrap a loop and pull our thread ends through the loop, tightening slowly. Tie the two knots together. This way, our knot will be larger and more secure. A second method. Hold down a little bit of the thread end. Press down with the longer thread. Twist forward with your thumb. Hold the intersection point. Tighten the loop and pull upwards. So, what about the third method? Pinch the thread like this. The thread end should be slightly shorter. This end is the thread we've threaded. Leave a slightly shorter section. About the length of one of our fingers is fine. Hold the needle like this. Leave the thread end slightly shorter. Press our needle on top and hold it. Wrap the longer thread around the needle to 2-3 times. Then pull out our needle. The knot is tied like this. The method for braiding and knotting is different for odd and even strands. For example, 3 strands. Thread our needle with the thread. Leave the ends slightly shorter. About the length of our finger is fine. Tie a knot at the other end. Like this, our 3-strand thread is threaded. 3 even-numbered strands. For example, for strand thread can be threaded by taking 2 strands through our needle. Then fold our thread in half. Align the ends of the thread and tie a knot. Like this, the knotted part also has 4 strands. So for 4-strand thread we have 2 methods. The first method is to leave one end long and one end short, like the 3-strand thread. The second method is to thread 2 strands in, then fold them in half. At the end, both sides have 4 strands, so you can see the same length. Using this method to thread will be a bit longer. If folded in half, the thread will be a bit shorter. If the thread is short, you'll need to change it more frequently. If you make a mistake in your embroidery, you can use our seam ripper or scissors. Gently lift and cut the embroidery thread. Be careful not to snag the fabric surface. Then remove it from the back. You can also use the longer end of our seam ripper. Insert it close to the fabric surface to cut the embroidery thread. Again, be careful not to snag the fabric surface. Now let's take a look at the finished effect. Next, take out the stitch and color guide. Upon opening it, you will see the required colors of thread, the number of thread strands, and the stitching techniques. Begin by stitching the Alocasia odoreus leaves. Start with this leaf. Here, number 1 thread is used. Take out the thread organizer. Then, open the thread. Smooth the thread out with your hand. Untangle any knots. Then, take number 1 thread. Pinch the loop with your hand and pull outward to loosen it. Pull this loop of thread out from the thread organizer. Take the thread directly from the thread organizer. Take a piece of thread. Set it aside for later use. Hang the remaining thread back onto the thread organizer. Thread it from the front to the back. The thread forms a loop at the back. Pass the thread through the loop. Pull it tight to secure it on the thread organizer. Take out the thread you've previously taken. Since the thread is quite long, it needs to be cut in half before use. Use scissors to cut the thread in half. This way you get 2 pieces of thread. Take one of them. Take out the guide. You can see that this position indicates 2 strands of thread are used. So, take 2 strands of thread. Pick up the thread you just prepared. Twist it with your hand like this, so you can see many individual strands. Pinch one of the strands with your hand. Hold the main thread with the other hand. Pull out this single strand. When taking the thread, Be careful to pull out one strand at a time. If multiple strands are pulled out together, the thread will easily tangle. Smooth out the thread. Put the remaining thread aside for later use. Take 2 strands. Align the thread ends and smooth them out. Next, begin threading the needle. Insert the wire of the threader through the needle eye. Pick up 2 strands of thread together. Thread the end of the thread through the threader. Pull the thread through. Remove the threader. Smooth the thread and tie a knot at the end. Wrap the thread once around your finger. Then pass the thread end through the loop and pull tight. Tying to knots will make it more secure. Trim off the excess thread end. The needle is now threaded. Take out the guide. You will see that this area uses the fishbone stitch. The fishbone stitch is located here in the practice kit. It is recommended to practice on the practice kit first, then proceed to stitch the finished piece. Begin stitching the leaves using the fishbone stitch. Bring the needle out at the leaf tip. Insert the needle at the top of the central stem. When pulling the thread, slow down and control the embroidery thread with your hand to prevent tangling. Make the next stitch by bringing out the needle right next to the exit point of the first stitch. Insert the needle just below the previous insertion point. Stitch down slowly. Follow the contour line closely along the edge of the previous stitch for a neat finish. Embroider a stitch on the opposite side using the same method. Arrange the lines closely together, without any gaps. If gaps appear, add another stitch to fill. Repeat stitching with alternating left and right. When the thread runs short, tie a knot on the back side. Wrap a loop by hand, pass the thread through. Tie to knots will make it more secure. Trim off the excess thread. When cutting, you may leave the thread end slightly shorter. After threading the needle, continue repeating the fishbone stitch. This side is already stitched. Simply fill the other side completely. Note that this area has already reached the bottom. To avoid frequent needle insertion and exit in the same hole, which can damage the fabric, insert the needle slightly above. Avoid entering and exiting through the same hole. Insert the needle for the last stitch at this position. Embroider this leaf using the same technique. Use the same color and technique to embroider the bottom leaf. Tie a knot and cut the thread promptly when it runs short. Next, embroider the lighter colored leaves. Note that 2 strands of number 2 thread are used. Begin by taking number 2 thread. You don't need to pull out the entire loop of thread. Loosen the thread loop like this. Hold the upper half with your hand. Pull out one piece from the loop. Pull the thread out. Smooth the remaining thread. Then tighten the thread. Cut the pulled out thread in half. Take one half. Pull out 2 strands. Begin threading the needle. After threading the needle, take out the guide. You will see that this area also uses the fishbone stitch. Use the fishbone stitch to embroider this leaf as well. The stitching method is the same as for the previous 3 leaves. When stitching to this point, please pay attention. Separate the two sides and stitch each side individually. Start by making one stitch. Continue until the thread catches on the edge of the leaf. Insert the needle at the crossing point. Pull out the needle from the bottom crossing point. You can fill this area first. Continue stitching the lower part. The lower part is stitched the same way as usual. However, the thread length in this section should be slightly shorter. Embroider this leaf using thread of the same color. The stitching technique for this section is the same. Follow the natural direction of the leaf. Fill it in completely. Continue embroidering the other side. Pay close attention when filling this small corner on this side. First, bring out the needle from the center position which corresponds to the stem. Then stitch towards the edge of the leaf. This approach makes it easier to determine the position. The leaf is embroidered like this. Use the same color of thread for this leaf. Also bring out the needle from the top. Insert the needle at the top of the stem. Bring out the needle from the side. You can see this position on the side. The first stitch covers part of the upper section. So bring out the needle from the uncovered area. The stitching technique is the same as for the previous leaves. Only the position is slightly adjusted, flexibly adapted to the shape of the leaf. The side of this leaf has almost turned inward and is no longer visible. Bring out the needle at this point. Pull a single line straight down. Insert the needle at the junction between the leaf and the stem. Continue stitching the upper part. As this side is already completed, you can embroider the other side following the direction of the leaf using the satin stitch method. After finishing the embroidery, not unbreak the thread at the back. Next, embroider the stem stalks. You can see that the stem stalks are the same color as the leaves. Therefore, use the same color for the stem stalk as for the leaf. Note that the stem stalks use 3 strands of thread. You can see that this part uses the outline stitch. The outline stitch can be found in this section of the practice kit. Everyone can practice here before embroidering. Next, embroider the stem stalks. Observe the position of the stem stalk on each leaf. For example, this is the stem stalk of this leaf. First, take number 2 thread and cut it in half, then pull out 3 strands. Begin threading the needle. Tie a knot at the end. Trim off the excess thread. Start embroidering the stem stalk from the bottom using outline stitch. Bring out the needle at the bottom position, and gently pull the thread to the left by hand. approximately 0.2 centimeters forward. That is, insert the needle at 1/18 of an inch. Be careful not to pull the thread tight. Hold the thread to the left by hand. Bring out the needle at the middle position. Then tighten the thread. Note that only the first stitch of the outline stitch is a back half stitch. Similarly, pull the thread to the left by hand. Insert the needle 0.3 centimeters forward, that is, 1/8 of an inch. Again, do not pull the thread tight. Bring out the needle at the previous stitch's needle entry point. Bring out the needle right next to the end of the previous stitch. Then tighten the thread. Repeat this action. At this position, the stem stalk is blocked, so we directly insert the needle at this point. Tighten the thread. This area is now fully embroidered. Next, bring the needle out at this position. Then repeat the outline stitch. The first stitch, exit the needle at the halfway point. The second stitch, exit the needle closely next to the previous one. Continue embroidering upwards to this position. Continue stitching along the seam in the middle of the leaf. Embroider all the way to the top. Use the same method to embroider the stem stalk. This stitch can end here, because the upper part is covered. Skip this section directly, and start embroidering from here. Secure the thread with a knot after completing the embroidery. Next, switch to number 1 thread to embroider the stem stalks of the dark-colored leaves. The embroidery technique is the same as for the stem stalks of the light-colored leaves. Bring the needle out from the bottom. Repeat the outline stitch technique. Embroider the remaining stem stalks using the same method. Secure the thread with a knot after completing the embroidery. Next, embroider the chair. This area uses number 7 thread with 3 strands. Begin by preparing the thread. Cut the thread in half. Take one of the halves. Pull out 3 strands from it. Begin threading the needle. After knotting, trim the excess thread. After threading the needle, refer to the guide. Here you can see that the basket weave stitch is used here. Next, embroider the chair back section. Before starting the embroidery, use a pencil to draw guidelines. The spacing between lines should be 1/8 of an inch. This is approximately 0.3 centimeters. Next, cut the number 7 thread in half. Use 3 strands for stitching. Begin by stitching vertically along the drawn guidelines. Before stitching down, straighten the thread and align it. Use the needle to lift and arrange the thread neatly. Then, proceed to embroider the horizontal part. Bring out the needle to the right side of the fourth thread line counting from the right. First, pass the thread under the fourth thread. Make any necessary adjustments. Then insert the needle slightly ahead of the fifth thread accordingly. That is, insert the needle between the fifth and sixth thread lines. Organize the thread lines. Ensure the horizontal lines are evenly spaced. Next, bring the needle out on the right side of the third thread line. The previous thread line passed underneath the fourth thread line. Therefore, this horizontal thread line should pass underneath the third thread line. Cover the fourth thread line and pass underneath the fifth thread line. Adjust and insert the needle on the left side of the fourth thread line. Bring the needle out on the right side of the second thread line from the right. Pass through the underneath of this thread line. Lift this thread line. Like this, pass the needle by skipping one thread line each time. Then insert the needle on the left side of the third thread from the left. Make any necessary adjustments. Following this pattern, first bring the needle out beside the first thread on the right. Pass the needle through the first thread. You can see this area is slightly lower than this side. Remove the needle. Pull the thread out and straighten it. Adjust the thread. Insert the needle at this position. Re-thread the needle. Insert the needle at this position. Due to the special nature of this embroidery technique, please observe carefully each time you bring the needle in and out. Embroider following this pattern. Cross stitch up and down, passing the thread through the stitched vertical lines. Interlace the thread in a staggered up and down pattern. Promptly adjust the thread line with the needle. After completing the embroidery of the entire chair back, tie a knot at the back to secure the thread. Next, embroider the cushion. You can see that satin stitch and French knot stitch are used in this area. Satin stitch can be found at this position in the practice kit. French knot stitch can be found at this position in the practice kit. Before embroidering, everyone can first practice using the practice kit. Then proceed to embroider the final piece. Begin by embroidering the inner grid section. Take number 3 thread and cut it in half, use 2 strands. Start embroidering from the upper left grid. Use satin stitch for the embroidery. Bring out the needle at the top point of the outermost thread line. At the intersection of this grid, that is, at this exact position, insert the needle at the end of this line. The second stitch should be placed close to the first stitch. Bring the needle out beside this stitch. Stitch down at the edge line. Be sure to keep it aligned in a straight line. This will create a neater edge. Embroider the adjacent grid in the opposite direction. This grid needs to be embroidered horizontally. Therefore, bring out the needle at this position. Insert the needle from the bottom of this grid. Embroider this grid horizontally to complete it. Next, embroider the small triangle beside it, also using horizontal stitches. Then, embroider the remaining grids below following the same pattern. Ensure that the grid directions are staggered. Use the same color of thread with 2 strands. Embroider French knot stitches at the intersections of the grids. First, select a position and bring out the needle from the backside. Hold the thread with one hand, and use the other hand to wrap the thread around the needle twice. Insert the needle near the previous needle exit point. Offsets lightly. If you insert the needle into the same hole, it may easily pull back through. Insert the needle. Be sure to hold the thread firmly with this hand. Do not let the thread loosen. We will pass the needle through. One French knot stitch is completed. Use the same method to embroider the remaining French knot stitches. After completing the embroidery, knot to secure the thread. Next, embroider the edge of the cushion. Use 3 strands of the same color thread and use the outline stitch. Bring the needle out at this point. The needle exit should be slightly towards the center. Hold the thread with your hand. The spacing between stitches should be approximately 0.3 centimeters. That is, insert the needle about 1/8 of an inch away. Be careful not to pull the thread too tight. Use your hand to gently pull the thread to the left. Bring the needle out at the middle section. Tighten the thread. Similarly, pull the thread to the left with your hand. Insert the needle at the same length as the first stitch. Hold the thread with your hand without pulling it tight. Bring out the needle at the previous stitch's needle entry point, right next to the end of the previous stitch. Tighten the thread. Repeat the above steps. Continue stitching to the top and tighten the thread. Begin a new stitch at this position on the side. Repeat the previous steps. Hold the thread upward. Next, start stitching from this lower section. Use the same embroidery technique as before. Bring the needle out at this spot. Pull the thread upward. Now, stitch this side. The embroidery technique on this side is the same as on the other side. Embroider from bottom to top. Bring the needle out at this position. The final stitch wraps the upper section. Make any necessary adjustments. For this area, we can make one stitch directly at this spot. Embroider one straight stitch. Bring out the needle from below. Insert the needle at the armrest position. Secure the thread with a knot after completing the embroidery. Next, stitch the edge of the chair back. Use 2 strands of number for thread for embroidery. First, embroider the narrow edge next to the chair back. Use the outline stitch for embroidery. Bring out the needle at the intersection between the chair back and this blanket. Pull the thread to the left. Insert the needle approximately 0.2 centimeters ahead, which is about 1/18 of an inch. Do not pull the thread tight. Hold the thread gently with your hand. Pull the thread to the left, and bring out the needle at the midpoint. Tighten the thread. Still hold the thread to the left with your hand. Insert the needle at the same stitch distance in front. Do not pull the thread tight. Bring out the needle at the entry point of the previous stitch. Tightening. Embroider this edge while using this embroidery technique. Embroider to this corner. Insert the needle at the corner. Tighten this stitch directly. Then start embroidering from the other side. Similarly, bring out the needle from the bottom. Pull the thread to the left. At the corner position, embroider one stitch directly to finish. This is the top part. First, bring out the needle from the left side of this stitch. Enter the needle at 0.2 cm, which is 1/18 of an inch. Pull the thread upward. Bring out the needle at the middle position. Then continue embroidering following the outline stitch method. When embroidering to this position, we insert the needle at the ending position here. Similarly, pull the thread upward. Insert the needle right next to the ending position on the right side. This stitch should wrap around the end of the line on the right. This area is now fully embroidered. Continue using the same color of thread with 2 strands, and use satin stitch to embroider the outer edge. When stitching, work horizontally like this. Bring the needle out at the outermost line of the outer edge. Insert the needle at the corresponding inner position. Try to place each stitch closely together. This will create a neater appearance. A gap in the middle will be minimal. While embroidering, the needle entry point can be slightly inward. This helps prevent the white fabric from showing between the outline stitch and satin stitch. Simply follow the contour of the outer edge of the chair back to complete the stitching. When embroidering the corner, be careful to inserting the needle at the same spot multiple times to change the angle of the thread. Smoothly transit the direction of the satin stitch. Now, begin stitching the armrests. Use the thread of the same color with 2 strands. Completely fill the topmost area with satin stitch. Do not stitch the middle blanket area. After finishing the top surface, proceed to stitch the side surface. Stitch vertically following its direction. Similarly, skip the blanket area and stitch the back part directly. After completing embroidery on the 2 sides, embroider the small front section horizontally. Use the same method to stitch this armrest. after stitching the armrests on both sides. Now, embroider the parts supporting the armrests. Use the same color of thread with 2 strands. We will use the outline stitch for embroidery. The stitching method is the same as the previous outline stitch. Bring the needle out from the bottom. Hold the thread to the left with your hand, then insert the needle forward about 1/8 of an inch, approximately 0.3 centimeters. Embroider the other side using the same method. Next, embroider the seat area of the chair. Begin by embroidering the upper surface. Embroider following its direction as well. We will embroider horizontally. This side is the surface that turns downward. Therefore, embroider vertically with the thread. After completing this section, begin embroidering these 3 legs. Start embroidering from the middle leg. Bring out the needle from the shorter side. Insert the needle on the corresponding opposite side. You can see a slight gap at the top. Add a stitch here. Fill it in using satin stitch. This area is too tiny. It is fine to cover it. Use the same satin stitch technique. Embroider all 3 legs in this manner. This area is big enough, so leave the stretcher section unstitched. Then, directly embroider the lower part. Embroider the 2 legs using the same method. This part is relatively long and exposed, so do not cover it. We insert the needle at this position. Then continue embroidering normally. Next, embroider the stretchers. Use outline stitch to embroider. Start from the very front stretcher. Bring out the needle here. We pull the thread upwards. Insert the needle 0.3 centimeters, 1/8 of an inch from the front. We go back half a stitch and bring out the needle from the middle point. Do not pull the thread too tight. From the second stitch onward, work back 1 stitch. Repeat the above steps. Embroider the remaining ones using the same method. Secure the thread with a knot after completing the embroidery. Next, cut number 4 thread in half and pull out 2 strands to embroider. Use satin stitch to embroider this section. Embroider vertically. Begin stitching from one side. Bring out the needle. Once you have reached this point, directly cover the round shape below with thread. Do not embroider the handle of this basket. Secure the thread with a knot after completing the embroidery. Next, embroider the basket. Using number 5 thread, cut in half and use 3 strands. After threading the needle, fold the thread in half and tie a knot. Ensure no thread end is left unknotted. This is a folded knot. After folding, you will have 6 strands. Next, begin embroidering the body of the basket. Bring out the needle at the junction between the basket edge and body. Insert the needle on the opposite side. Embroider the second stitch with a slight distance in between. After the needle exits, insert it at the corresponding position. Pull the thread horizontally. Fill the entire basket using the same method. If the thread is insufficient, knot to secure the thread, and re-thread the needle. Next, vertically stitch 5 lines on top. Before stitching, you can mark at the basket's edge with a pencil. After marking, adjust as needed. Then embroider according to the marked positions. Bring out the needle at the marked position. Ensure the needle exit does not go beyond the basket's edge. After the needle exits, pass it vertically under the thread. Thread through every other stitch like this. The embroidery technique is similar to that used on the chair back. Insert the needle at this position. It is important to ensure that each thread interlaces offset from the previous one. For example, look at the first vertical line. In the first row, the vertical thread is pressed over the horizontal thread. Therefore, the second line should have the horizontal thread pressed over the vertical thread in the first row. Do this to create a clear distinction. Insert the needle. Repeat the process to thread the remaining lines properly. Be sure to clearly identify which thread you are threading. Do not thread the wrong one. Adjust the position of the thread as you thread. When the thread is insufficient, knot to secure the thread at the back and re-thread. Use 3 strands of thread in the same color. Fold the thread in half to create 6 strands for embroidering the edge of this basket. Bring the needle out at the top edge. Begin embroidering the outline stitch. Since there are multiple strands, organize them as you stitch. This will keep the embroidery looking neat. After finishing, knot the thread at the back to secure it. Next, embroider the basket handle. Cut the thread of the same color in half, then use 2 strands to embroider the handle. Use the outline stitch technique. Embroider directly at this spot. There is no need to leave it out separately. Secure the thread with a knot after completing the embroidery. Next, use 2 strands of number 3 thread to embroider. This bunch of scallions is embroidered using the outline stitch. Begin embroidering with the scallion hanging at the top. Shorten the stitches at the corners when embroidering. You can add several extra stitches at this spot. Before starting to embroider the long scallions below, first clearly distinguish them. Identify where a whole scallion is. For example, this position represents a whole scallion. This is a single scallion. Here is another single scallion. After distinguishing them, begin embroidering, starting with the lowest scallion. Do not change the thread color or the number of strands. Use the outline stitch for embroidery as well. Here, simply embroider straight across. Embroider the scallion below. Embroider straight across, lay it over the first scallion you just embroidered. After finishing embroidery on all 3 scallions, proceed to embroider the middle section. Sew 2 straight stitches on the tied middle section. Pull the stitches like this. If the exposed area is relatively large, you can add another stitch. Next, embroider the hanging section. Use outline stitch for this part. Begin bringing out the needle at the bottom, moving upwards. If the thread slips off like this, you can use a threader to re-thread it. After finishing the embroidery, knot and break the thread at the back. Next, embroider the hooks. Start by embroidering vertical parts. Use number 6 thread with 2 strands. Begin stitching from the first hook. Stitch this hook section from bottom to top, as it needs to cover the basket handle. Bring out the needle from the position just below the basket handle. Insert the needle at the middle of this hook rail. Make 2 straight stitches. Try to keep them close together. Use the same method to stitch the other 4 hooks. This section also requires exiting the needle from below. Next, bring out the needle at the position on the hook rail. At the end point, bring out the needle and create a French knot stitch. Wrap the thread around the needle 3 times. Leave some space. Avoid inserting the needle in the same spot. Insert the needle to the side slightly. Embroider the remaining ones using the same method. After embroidering, knot the thread on the back. Next, hem the edge of the embroidery fabric. Learn how to hem the edge of the embroidery fabric. After embroidering, turn the fabric to the back side. Then look at this distance on this side. For the other parts, cut them to about the same distance. Use scissors to cut off the excess part. This edge width is about 5/8 of an inch. About 1.5 centimeters. First, cut all of this edge completely. After cutting, select any color of thread. It is best to choose a thread color that closely matches the fabric, or select lighter colored thread. However, this thread will be on the back side and will not be visible. Before sewing, to prevent the edge from fraying, you can carefully singe the edge with a lighter in advance. This will make it less likely to fray. Alternatively, you can apply glue to the fabric edge. Wait for the glue to dry completely before sewing. Due to international shipping restrictions, please provide your own glue. Apply it evenly along the edge like this. Now the edge is dry. You can check it. It feels slightly stiff, but it will no longer fray. Next, let's begin sewing. After taking the strands of thread, thread the needle. Make one side longer and the other shorter like this. The shorter side should be about the length of a finger. Knot the end of the thread on the longer side. Start from the middle of this edge. Then use running stitches. Sew around the embroidery hoop. The thread is almost used up. We have sewn from this point all the way to here. When the thread runs short, first pull the thread tight. The edge will naturally tuck inward. After tightening, sew 2 stitches at this spot to secure it. Tie another knot. Bring the thread to the back of the fabric and trim the thread end. Thread and continue stitching from this point. After threading, first tie a knot at the thread end. Then, instead of starting at this position, begin stitching slightly before it. Hide the thread tail on the back side. If you are concerned about pulling too tightly and dragging the thread tail onto the fabric surface, you can sew 2 extra stitches at this spot. Then, continue stitching forward. Continue stitching until you reach this position. This is the starting point. You are about to make the final stitch. Push the needle through to the front. Tighten this half. Secure it by tightening it like this. Then tie a knot on the fabric surface. You can also knot like this. Place the needle here. Then wrap the thread around the needle. Next, pull the thread all the way down. Then, pull the needle out. Bring the thread to the back and cut it off. The fabric edge is now secured. The project is completed.